Hello, my name is Martine Ellis, and it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Kate Kellaway. And in today's interview, we're going to be exploring how Kate uses TeacherMatic to enhance her everyday teaching practice. So enough from me. I'm going to hand over to you, Kate, straight away and ask you to introduce yourself, to share perhaps a little bit about your journey into teaching and what you teach now and where you're based.
Okay, yeah, so my name is Kate, and I actually originally trained as an actor and performer, um, and I worked for 3 years as an actor, and then I realised that part of what I really enjoyed about my job was doing workshops.
Mm.
Specifically at the time, I was working on some Shakespeare plays in rep, so we would during the evening we would perform our shows, and during the day we would go around the local schools and do some workshops and that kind of thing. And I really enjoyed that workshop bit. So
Yeah.
at a kind of quiet point when there wasn't much work coming in, because acting is a really tough gig,
Mhm.
um, I came back to Guernsey to fill a gap basically in the performing arts course that had recently started at the Guernsey College of FE.
Yeah.
Not really intending to stay that long, and that was 16 years ago.
16 years, wow.
Yeah, so I am now the curriculum lead in performing arts at the Guernsey Institute, which was formerly the Guernsey College of FE, but we're a vocational college based in Guernsey in the Channel Islands. Yeah,
Amazing. What a journey. So
yeah,
16
an odd
years
one.
later. Fantastic. So let's kind of talk about TeacherMatic now. And I'm really curious to learn what interested you in TeacherMatic initially, and then we'll kind of look at what role it plays in your teaching practice. So what interested you? What kind of hooked you in?
Um, I had heard talk of AI. Um,
Rumor.
yeah, on the wind, whisperings on the wind. My husband is a technician, so is quite techy and had kind of talked about it quite a lot. And then I started playing around with ChatGPT because you could, and just kind of see the sort of things it might be able to do to help me as a teacher, not really understanding actually the impact that it could have. And then I'm an advanced practitioner here at the college as well, which means I kind of mentor other members of staff. And so as an advanced practitioner, we were given a link to TeacherMatic to trial by some of our senior leaders who'd been to an AOC conference. And they said, here, this looks amazing. Try it, play, see what happens. And I tried it and I played, and I just thought, oh my goodness, this could really change my day, my week, my month, my year. So it went from there. Yeah.
Amazing. And are you using it kind of on almost a daily basis now? Is it foundational in your teaching practice, or do you just dip in and out occasionally?
Some weeks more than others, really. Some weeks I really need it, and I'm kind of using it daily, and other weeks I might kind of dip in and out. But just knowing that it's available takes that moment where you're kind of sat going, to actually, I know something that can help me with this.
Amazing. So I get the impression then from what you're saying is that you kind of use it to kind of enhance your productivity as a teacher, to sort of speed up a lot of the processes of being a teacher. So a lot of the behind the scenes type stuff. So would you say you use it in planning, assessment? What aspects of your teaching practice would it feature in?
It's definitely it features in planning. It features in coming up with activities, task questions. It's that kind of day-to-day stuff. And I know there are so many more areas of it that I haven't fully explored yet either when it comes to assessment and stuff like that. I feel like I'm just at the beginning of discovering those generators. So yeah, it's more in the kind of planning, thinking of activities, question. I mean, there's just so much just within that
Yeah.
that the generators can do for you. It's kind of, I use it kind of like a bit of a personal assistant.
That's such a great description, actually. Just having someone, a non-human someone, who can just support you with a lot of those administrative and planning type functions. That's a really good description. And the idea that every teacher, every lecturer could have a personal assistant is kind of mind-blowing. So it kind of illustrates the possibilities of using a tool like TeacherMatic, which is really
Yeah, absolutely. How many times have we kind of said, I could really do with some help right now?
yeah, definitely.
It's there and it's available.
And the idea, there's a couple of things that you said. The idea that it kind of just moves things along, it moves things along and gets rid of the blank page. You didn't use those words specifically, but I got the impression that you're not starting from scratch, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Which
for
is a
sure.
big deal. And it's kind of doubling the workforce in many ways as well, because
Yeah,
everyone has
absolutely.
this PA. I love it. Amazing. So lots of planning, bit of creativity, bit of idea generation, lots of getting rid of the blank page is kind of how it's playing a role for you now. And the fact that there's other aspects that you're keen to explore is really, really interesting. So I'm curious about how you sort of practically get into TeacherMatic and do things. Pretend I don't know anything about TeacherMatic. I would really love it if you could, in a moment, share your screen and just walk me through a couple of ways that you might use it in, for example, well, you're in a performing arts area, that's your vocational area of expertise. So let's go performing arts. What would you do? Okay, Kate, I can see we are in TeacherMatic now, which is great. So talk me through some of your favorite generators, what you might do if you were using it to prep for some performing arts teaching.
Okay. So I think one of my favorite is learning activities. So if I were to say that my topic is where we are at the moment, which is rehearsing a musical for performance. We'll just give it that for now.
Yeah.
And what I generally do is ask it for way more activities than I actually need, because then you're kind of guaranteed to get some good ones in there.
That's a good tip, actually. Ask for more than you need, and then you can
Ask-
start refining.
Absolutely. And then we can move the complexity based on where our learners are. So I'm vocational training and post 16. So I would probably put it up here. That being said, I do also teach level 2 learners. So if I've got all my students in together, I might ask for some tasks that are up here. And then to differentiate my level 2 learners, I might ask for some tasks that are down here. So for now, we'll see what it comes up with.
Amazing.
And it's usually very quick. There we go.
That is quick. Wow. Let's have a look at what's come up with and let
So
me know what
it's,
you think.
so it's giving me some script analysis. Students will dissect the musical script, understand character motivations of the overall storyline. Love that. That's definitely a sort of early on task for our performance work. Vocal warm-ups, character development workshops, explore different acting techniques to bring characters to life on stage. Individual coaching sessions, receive one-to-one feedback and guidance from instructors to hone your performance skills. I love the idea of some costume and set design, because although my students are working as performers, it's really important for them to get a holistic view of theatre. So just within that, I've seen 3 immediately that has sparked my brain off going, actually, yeah, I can do that. And this is what I'll get them to do. And because I'm not asking TeacherMatic to do the work for me, I'm using it as an assistant. I'm kind of saying, this is roughly my class topic here. We're going to be rehearsing a musical for performance. Give me some ideas of stuff I can kind of throw into the mix. And immediately out of 8, I'm getting 3 that I'm going, yeah, definitely, that jumps out at me. That's a brilliant task.
Amazing. So, I really like the fact that you did more than you needed and you're using it to, like we said earlier, get rid of the blank page, just start sparking some ideas. That's a great example.
Absolutely. And the more, I mean, I've given it a very simple topic prompt there. I've just said rehearsing a musical for performance. Obviously, the more I went in depth with that topic, the more in depth my activities would be.
I wonder if we should do a regeneration and explore like expanding that topic slightly just to illustrate the difference. So how would we expand, given this is your area of expertise, rehearsing a musical performance would be maybe say what the musical was, or maybe indicate like a more specific part of the rehearsal. What would be a way to explore a different option?
Yeah, so if I put starting rehearsals, oh, excuse my spelling,
Don't worry.
for let's say, for a performance of Mel Brooks' musical Young Frankenstein.
Great example.
I'm saying we're starting the rehearsals and it's going to be Mel Brooks' musical Young Frankenstein.
So it's indicating you're kind of early on in the process, which is quite interesting. So if you regenerate the response now, and let's have a look at what it comes up with. I'm just curious to see the effect of kind of sort of just niching down a bit with the topic. So let's, oh, look.
There we go. Watch a recording of a professional production of Young Frankenstein. Discuss key elements of the musical, music, choreography, and set design. Brilliant. It's a perfect task to start off the student's process. Analyze the character of Dr. Frankenstein and other main characters. Brilliant. Readings of key scenes. Love that. I mean, obviously, we'll definitely do that. There's loads there. Where was it? I saw. Oh yeah, historical context of the original film. That's so important because Mel Brooks wrote the film and then went on to write the musical many years later. So it's really important that students understand that whole context.
Nice.
So yeah, the more info you give that prompt, the more in depth your generations are going to be there. And there's loads of activities there that I could definitely expand out and use with students.
Amazing. I love that. So I've not played with the learning activities generator. So I like how it's sparking the ideas. So you're not diving straight into planning something. It's actually that stage beforehand when you're thinking, right, what am I going to do? This is broadly where I am. What am I going to do? So it's almost the stage before. So that's a brilliant demonstration, Kate. Thank you. What else would you like to share?
So this classroom questions is really great. Generating questions based on a topic. What I really like about this one is if you give it some really good instruction, the questions that come back are really, really in depth. That it kind of astounds me a little bit. So if I say here, the topic is watching the National Theatre's production of Peter Pan as a piece of children's theatre, which is something that we did back in February.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm going to ask it for more questions than I actually need.
Yep, good call.
We can ask it the type of questions that we want. So I'd like some open questions. And then we can look at Bloom's taxonomy here. So what exactly am I trying to get from the students? So I definitely want to test their knowledge and their comprehension of watching the production. So if we give it that for now.
And see what happens. Love it.
I'm going to keep the level up here.
Yeah.
And we'll generate. And hopefully we'll get some good questions.
Yeah, I'm curious to see because you've given plenty of detail in the prompt. So it'd be really interesting to see kind of how detailed and how probing the questions are. So let's have a look.
They're quite detailed.
Yeah, look at that. Let's have a quick scan.
Discuss the themes of childhood and imagination in the National Theatre's production of Peter Pan. And then it gives you a suggested answer.
I wasn't expecting that because you didn't ask for suggested answers. That's really smart, isn't it?
Yeah. And what's really interesting as well is having watched the National Theatre's production of Peter Pan, that is such a great question because the entire set is designed like a child has just gone mad with paint.
Awesome.
So it's a brilliant question to kind of spark interest in the students and spark that discussion.
I love it.
Set design and costumes used in the production of Peter Pan. How do these elements contribute to the overall atmosphere of the play? Yeah, how does it engage with its young audience members? Yes, it does encourage them to participate in the story, interact with the characters. So it's just...
Well, there's a great question there about gender roles. That's quite interesting.
Yes, because Captain Hook is played by a female actor in that production, and TeacherMatic knows that, and it knows that that's a really good thing to ask about.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. I just thought broadly it was going to be asking about gender roles, but clearly it's taken the actual National Theatre production
Yeah.
on that
Yeah,
level.
this is what is fantastic. Also, in that production, Tinkerbell is played by a male character. So there's it's such a fun production. But that's by the by. Um,
This could
the
very easily turn into a theatre nerd conversation.
I'm really sorry. Um, the the questions are fabulous, and for me. So I wanted my students, we have the National Theatre subscription, so my students can watch National Theatre productions, which is amazing because being based in Guernsey, professional theatre, it's tricky to access it.
Yeah.
So I wanted my students to watch Peter Pan and I wanted them to answer some questions around it. So my options were spend an entire evening watching Peter Pan myself and kind of writing questions as we go and really kind of getting into it. Or I could do what I did, which was watch Peter Pan, enjoy Peter Pan, and then ask TeacherMatic to help me out with these questions.
Yeah.
And
That saved you so much time, hasn't it?
saved me so much time. Because also I could, in my kind of watching of it before the students watched it, I could skim through it a little bit as well. I knew it was going to be appropriate. I knew it had the right age rating. I knew it was children's theatre. I'd read everything I needed to read about it.
Yeah.
But I could skim through it a little bit
Yeah.
and then just check that these questions kind of tied up with what I was thinking anyway. But they've done that kind of, I hate the phrase grunt work, but they have done that for me.
Yeah.
And because TeacherMatic is specifically for educators, with built by educators, I can trust that what I'm going to get from TeacherMatic is going to be appropriate, as opposed to possible other AI engines where it's just the internet. It's kind of everything.
That's a really good point, actually, because I guess there's an argument of you could use ChatGPT directly, but you'd have to spend so much more time crafting your prompt, explaining that you're an educator, that your specialist area is performing arts, that you're focusing on this, that you're in Guernsey, that the prompt would be quite long. But you can go in here, you can pick a generator, you can trust that the response is going to be tailored to education. I think that's a really good point.
Another great thing about classroom questions as well is if you're doing comprehension with your students, you can actually say the topic, you can upload the file that they're going to be reading, and then you can ask it to generate the questions from that as well. So again, it just kind of takes out some of the legwork.
Yeah, I can really see that. So classroom questions, definitely a generator that you use on a regular basis.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. Are there any other generators you would like to show us how you use them?
Yes, there we go. Let me have a look.
There's a lot to choose from.
Oh, there's so many, and they keep adding all the time. So there's so many I haven't explored yet. But every time I kind of log in and go, oh, look at that, that's great. Also, what I haven't done yet, but I totally plan to do, is up here you can, if I can do it now, if I just click on that heart there, I'm going to let TeacherMatic know that learning activities is one of my favorites, as is classroom questions, and it's just going to make it immediately available for me there at the top, because this goes on and on and
Yes.
on. You can also down the side here say what level you're teaching, so that can kind of narrow it down a little bit, but yeah.
So talk to us about how you use the rubric generator, Kate. Actually, what might be helpful is if you explain what a rubric is, just in case we've got some trainee teachers, for example, watching. So firstly, what is a rubric? And then go on to show us how you use the generator.
Okay, so rubric is, I can show you an example of a rubric.
Amazing.
So because I teach UAL, performing arts, the way that they sort of define the end of year grades is using a rubric. So we can see here, this is their rubric. They call it a matrix, but that just makes me think of Keanu Reeves.
Understandably.
Yeah. So this is their kind of rubric. So we can see down the side here, they've got the things that the students are going to be assessed against. So they're going to be assessed against their ability to engage context, research, problem solving, planning and production, practical skills, evaluation and reflection, and presentation.
Yeah.
So that's my second year students. And then along the top here, we can see the levels of work that we expect in order to achieve the grades at the top. So for a fail on context, they would show limited understanding of subject context, lacking clarity in aims and purpose. And then along all the way to a distinction, which is comprehensive understanding. And as you would expect, there's a lot of work involved.
So it's like a grading matrix, basically.
It is. Essentially, it's a way of grading that I find it really useful because it's very visual.
Yeah.
You can kind of see immediately where they're at. And then as we go along, actually, when we're grading our students, what we can do is we can highlight the boxes, colour them. So we immediately get a visual of where they're sitting, whether they're in the pass merit or the distinction kind of columns.
It's also really transparent, isn't it? That you're not hiding anything. And actually a student could use a rubric for self-assessment where they are with things.
Absolutely. And we expect our students to use this as well. It's part of their assignment brief. They know exactly, there's kind of nothing hidden. They know exactly what they're being graded against. Yeah. But sometimes I think the language that is used by awarding bodies can be a little bit tricky. And particularly some of this language for distinction level work, sometimes it is actually confusing and a little bit beyond where perhaps a 16 to 19 learner can comprehend. So I don't know if this is the right use of the rubric generator, but it's been really helpful for me because I've been able to take, I'll give an example. So when my students are working in the rehearsal room, they are there's certain areas of this matrix, this rubric that they're working on. So what I would do is I would go here to my rubric generator here. And the assignment assessment title is performing in young, oh, there we go, see.
It's not the easiest word to spell, to be fair.
Oh, there's multiple ways of spelling it as well. So I'm going to say they're performing in Young Frankenstein the musical. We can choose what scale we want. So as they're working through the rehearsal process, I do actually want to avoid using pass merit and distinction in the room because I would rather they thought more holistically about their work and what's going to come out of it at the end. But with a bit of sense, they can figure out that excellent, good, fair, and poor relate quite closely to distinction, merit pass, and a fail. But also, you can choose your language here for what you want the outcome to be.
Yeah.
But I do prefer the excellent, good, fair, poor.
Yeah.
So for their performance indicators here, I'm going to go back to this and choose the ones that specifically, I've put performing, I will change it. Bear with my brain. Specifically relate to rehearsing. So we've got problem solving, and I'm going to go with the merit criteria here. So just for problem solving, I'm going to copy that there. I'm going to put that in as a performance indicator. It's broken it down into two, which is absolutely fine. Yeah. It's kind of recognised that there's possibly kind of 2 points going on there.
That's actually really smart.
Planning and production is also part of the rehearsal process. So I'm going to take that one as well. Again, it's broken it down into two. Totally makes sense. It's fine. And then let's have a look at their practical skills as well. So again, I'll take the merit.
Yep. Paste it in. Great.
And it's pasted in there. I'm just going to change this real quick to rehearsing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just shows the importance of using the right words, doesn't it? I'm glad you made that change. That's really kind of highlighted something there. That's great.
So say I've got a student now who is really wanting to achieve the merit. And when it comes to my second years as well, it's possibly what they've been told by their universities they have to get in order to get in. So they are pushing for that merit grade. They're looking at the matrix, the rubric, and they're kind of going, ah.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to generate a little something for them to help them out using this.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what this creates, actually.
I've just said here, you can have it in a table or you can have it as bullet points. But like I've already said, I prefer the table because I find it quite visual. So it's taken the performance indicators that I've cut and pasted from the UAL language, and it's just kind of broken it down even more for them.
Okay.
So you're looking to consistently and proactively tackle your challenges with innovative solutions, showing a strong sense of independence and original thinking. Brilliant. If you're not quite getting there.
Yeah.
So it just helps to break down for my students what they need to be doing in order to get that grade that they're possibly chasing.
That's a brilliant use of the rubric generator, because I'm thinking then this could maybe flow into the creation of particular SMART targets. So what you're doing is you're taking something that's quite complex, breaking it down so it's understandable and working out the route to get there. So targets obviously would be one way to do that. So by just tweaking the language and breaking it down, that's a great use. I love that, Kate.
You can also here, you can export it now. So it's created that table for me, which is brilliant. I can export it as a PDF and then it's available to me, which is brilliant. Just wonderful. Also, along this line, there's just something else I want to show you as well, if that's okay.
Of course.
Because it's something that I found really useful working alongside students.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've kind of shown you this, and because I've talked about how the language can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Yeah. Another thing that I found TeacherMatic is really, really helpful. If I take this distinction criteria here, which is decisive demonstration of initiative and effectively solving problems autonomously, implementing creative solutions and adapting to unforeseen practical and theoretical challenges to achieve identified goals.
I mean, it's a long sentence, I'm just saying.
I'm going to take that, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to TeacherMatic. Mm-hmm. Another thing I should say as well, which is super useful, is you can save your results.
Got it.
So if you're kind of working on something and you think I'll come back to that or I'll need that again, you can save your results as well. Brilliant. For now, I'm not going to save that. I'm going to find Chat with TeacherMatic. And this one. And you're going to see my previous chats come up. There you go. So I'm going to ask it, can you simplify this language for me?
Brilliant.
And then I'm going to paste in that ridiculously long sentence that defines the distinction level work. I'm going to ask it to simplify that for me. Show strong drive in solving problems, coming up with creative solutions independently and adjusting to unexpected challenges to meet set goals.
That makes much more sense.
That's so much more accessible to a student than the original language.
That's a really good use case. I can see multiple ways just using that chat interface could be helpful. And it's spitting out responses that are education appropriate too, so you're still saving time.
This is it, because I know that it's education appropriate, created by educators, I can pretty much trust what's going to come out of this. And if I'm working alongside a student and they're just, they're needing help with simplifying language, and I can sit with them and say, well, let's talk about this now.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to cut and paste this and send this to the student and go, there you go, that's a simplified language. We're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss. We're going to, it's not the done deal all the time. See what I mean? And that's why I say it's an assistant, because it's just helping me out there.
Yeah, it's a good distinction. Whatever you're using in relation to AI, whatever is kind of presented to you is that starting point for either further conversation or further adaptation. So I think that's a really important thing to underline and double click on, I guess. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. So those have been some fantastic demonstrations, Kate, of how you use TeacherMatic to support your teaching. Let's go with kind of a last example. Is there any generators you'd like to highlight as we sort of reach the end of this interview?
Yeah, just a couple more, if that's okay. I'm just going to, I won't go on about it too much because it is quite similar to chat with TeacherMatic, but this Ask an Expert is actually really interesting because you tell TeacherMatic who do you want to hear from? So like it says here, plumber, chef, literary agent, professional actor, dance captain, choreographer, all of that. And then you ask it a question. It's great fun because it will respond as the expert in that particular area. So for vocational training, that's fantastic. That's brilliant.
I can see some really interesting use cases with that actually. In your vocational area, you could have chats with characters, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Which would be
Yeah.
great fun, kind of hot seating the characters. But I also am thinking about, say, teacher training, and if you're doing theory-based modules in teacher training, which can be a bit dry sometimes, if you were asking an expert like, one of the big theorists in teacher training, and asking the theorist who has died, like Sean, say you were doing reflective practice, questions for Sean, what would you ask Sean, those sorts of things. That could be a really fun use case. I
Yeah,
think
really.
I think you said you were going to look at flashcards as your final
Flashcards.
data. That would be really interesting. So very useful for memorizing things.
Yeah. This is really good as well for breaking down tasks for students as well.
Great.
So we're going to say the topic here is we're going to go away from our musical now, and let's say it's the Laban theory of movement.
Wow.
And I'm going to ask it for 6 flashcards. And actually, this is going to be for my level 2 group, so I'm going to leave the complexity here, sort of in the middle. And we're going to ask it to generate.
As somebody who doesn't know anything about the Laban theory of movement, I'm really curious to see what this comes up with.
So this is a fantastic introduction to the Laban theory of movement. And again, it's telling you what to put on the front of the card, it's telling you what to put on the back of the card. And absolutely, it's right. So it's broken down these different areas of Laban movement for the student. It's given them a description on the back, and it's a great way, especially if you want to help your students with any revision, or if it is a tricky area, and a kind of tricky theory area that they just might need a little bit of help on. The only thing I would say about flashcards is we can export it as a PDF, but if you want to kind of jazz up your flashcards, make them more into kind of image based, it's not going to do that for you right now.
But you've got the text, so you can
see the text, and then you go crazy with the creativity.
Yeah, so I'm thinking actually, if you were doing physical flashcards, that would be really relevant. But actually, if you were using like a flashcard app, I'm thinking something like Quizlet, I think that's a flashcard app, or Anki, or one of those tools, then ultimately you could export probably as something like an Excel or a Word doc and just copy and paste into the app. That would probably be one way of using this information.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. If you wanted to get more creative, you might want to be printing them out and making physical flashcards, which absolutely have an important place in revision for sure.
Yeah.
That's great. And actually, even if you weren't going to use these flashcards, there's some good definitions there you could use.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I do the Laban theory of movement with my students, I could turn this into a poster that goes on the wall.
Brilliant.
On our notice board. And it's just those kind of those key terms for the student. So when we do start to encourage them to use the language, the appropriate language. So when we do start working through this, it's all there. It's not just for flashcards. It's a really useful tool in just defining and breaking down. And if I use that with my level 2 students, I would possibly up the level there and regenerate for my level 3 students. I'm probably going to get a little bit more complex language, a little bit more as it regenerates.
So you can differentiate at the touch of a button. Oh,
yeah, you can.
That's interesting. They've changed so the actual terminology on the left-hand side has changed.
Yeah. So it's starting it's starting to talk about the more complex levels of Laban theory of movement, like notation, connectivity, and harmony, which are words that perhaps we would use with our higher level students and not with our sort of level 2 students.
And in my head, I was expecting the back definition to be beefed up, but absolutely what you've just explained makes way more sense, that the terminology is more complex and actually there's less of a description because it's at a higher level. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Love it.
It is. It's brilliant. It's wonderful. I could go on about it for ages.
Great example. Thank you for sharing that, Kate. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, Kate, I understand you are an advanced practitioner, which means that you have a responsibility for supporting other colleagues with their professional development. And I know that AI will be a hot topic in every college across the whole of the UK right now. And I wonder, say you might want to think of a specific lecturer, have a particular colleague in your head, somebody who's a bit anxious about AI and a bit nervous. But you also know that they could kind of benefit from the support that a tool like TeacherMatic would offer them. How would you work with them and kind of hook them into exploring TeacherMatic? What would you show them first, perhaps?
Yeah, so I think there is still some suspicion out there around AI, particularly kind of fueled by lots of media stuff about AI taking our jobs and that kind of thing. So I think if I had someone I was working with who was perhaps feeling a bit anxious, a bit suspicious, I think the best thing to do is kind of as I've done with you this morning, is just sit down and show some examples. Possibly the first thing is just chat to TeacherMatic and try asking a few questions. I think the learning activities generator is a really good way in, because it's not, all it's doing is kind of helping you out with just that kind of, it's not taking your job. You have to do the thinking. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be the expert, and then just allow it to assist you. So perhaps sit down together, have a look at that generator, have a look at the couple more generators, play around with prompts as well, play around with putting in a really simple prompt and then put in a much more detailed prompt and have a look at the difference of what is generated from that. And ultimately, I think it is a case of explore, play, try before you use it in your actual practice, before you use it in the studio, in the classroom. Just see what it can do.
Yeah. Because
I think you'd be absolutely amazed. The time that it can save, the help that it can give. It's not doing my job for me. It can't do my job for me. I'm the expert. I've got the experience. I know what I'm doing. But you know what? Every now and then, I'm not a robot. I'm human. And we all have days where we just go, I know what I have to do. I'm just not feeling how I'm going to get there today. Or the students are having a bad day. And actually, I'm going to sit down. I'm just going to take 5 minutes of my lunch, possibly, just to go, do you know what? They're not having a great one today. I'm going to generate something different to do this afternoon to try and help them through that. I think once you start looking at it as that help, that assistant, it's not scary anymore. You don't need to be suspicious. I would encourage anyone just to look through the TeacherMatic website, and it will tell you how it's been created with hundreds of educators. So it's not plucking anything out of thin air. It's based on theory. It's based on, you've got Bloom's taxonomy through a lot of this. It'll tell you that it's working on that basis, and what levels of that do you want to assess within your students' work.
And because you're the expert, you know the answer to that question. So no blogs couldn't use it effectively. It relies on you being an expert teacher, which, as you rightly state, kind of reassures that slightly suspicious individual that AI isn't taking our jobs.
And possibly I would encourage someone to go through all the generators, because there are so many. And perhaps first of all, just look at the ones that are about you and what it can do to help you. and then go on to possibly looking at the work that it can do to help your students as well.
I love that point, because as teachers, we so often feel some guilt for wanting to do things for ourselves, and we need to just get rid of that notion completely. Because if, as a teacher, if you're not sort of doing your best work and feeling your best and working at your highest level, you can't serve your students in the way that you want to. So I think that tip about going through the generators and seeing which one can help you first is a really top tip, and then kind of think more broadly thereafter. And there are so many generators that if, as an advanced practitioner, you picking out just a couple to start with, I think that's really helpful. And I love that you started your demonstration with the learning activities one, because that probably, if I was looking at it for the first time, I'd have gone, oh, I'm going to get it to do my schema work. But actually, no, that's a really complex document.
Yeah.
Just start with generating some ideas, asking a few questions. That's really stellar advice there, Kate. So thank you. I'm going to ask you a final question now. And you might have alluded to this through our conversation, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you were to describe TeacherMatic to a fellow teacher or alien from another planet, maybe, and they've never heard of it, they've no idea what it is, what would you say to them?
I would say the modern world is really, really fast, and we are educating children for a future with jobs that might not even exist at the moment. And we are working really hard, and we are really busy, and we are tired. And TeacherMatic, if you allow it to be, can become your personal assistant and your thinking partner. And it's wonderful. And it takes so much of the stress and strain away from day-to-day working. It's brilliant.
Wonderful. Kate, thank you so much for your time today. I've learnt loads. I'm sure anybody watching or reading the transcript of this interview will also learn loads. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on this interview.
Thank you for having me.